Hello, everybody. My name is Lynda Clark. I'm the editor of First Time Buyer magazine, and we are celebrating National Home Buying Week, the first week of October. So we're very excited. And today I'm really looking forward to talking to Denise Stewart. She is Director of Sales and Marketing at Legal and General Affordable Homes. Now, obviously, the market is all a bit topsy turvy at the moment, but first time buyers, I think, are still very much wanting to get onto the property ladder. It is difficult with ever increasing rents, mortgage interest rate rises, which has thrown a lot of people, and saving for a deposit is tough. But there are other ways of doing it which are much more affordable. Oh, welcome, Denise. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, I would think we'll just start off with perhaps you telling us a little bit about Legal and General Affordable Homes and what you do, how it all works.
Of course, yeah, it's really nice to be here and thanks for the opportunity. Um, Legal and General Affordable Homes is a housing provider. We specialise in affordable housing, as the name suggests, and my role within the business is to manage the shared ownership team. So we have properties all the way down in Cornwall and all the way up to the very north of England. And really offering that option for people who can't quite get onto the housing ladder at full market value at the whole, for the whole amount, and really offering that shared ownership option for people. So we sell somewhere around about 500 units a year across the country. So houses, apartments, all sorts of things, and it's very enjoyable. It's really nice to see people getting their getting the home that they hope they would be able to, and being able to afford it. So very enjoyable job.
It must be wonderful to hand those keys over, and see the joy of people putting the key in the
Absolutely.
lock for the first time. Lovely. I mean, absolutely. So, for anybody that's listening that doesn't quite understand shared ownership, because there is a lot of myths about shared ownership, could you just explain how that works?
Of course, yeah. We get this quite a lot. People say, does it mean I have to share with somebody I don't know or someone I do know? Neither of which sometimes are that appealing. So yes, it's the idea of shared ownership is that a customer can come to us and buy a smaller share of the property, so not 100%, typically between 25 and 75% of the value of the home, and then they pay a subsidised rent on the part that they don't own. So, generally speaking, it works out a little bit cheaper than renting a property on the private market, but really gives people the opportunity to make that first step onto the property ladder. And then over time, you can buy more shares of that property. So, eventually, you can own it outright in most cases.
It's incredible. I think it's such a good scheme and it has been around for a very long time. But I suppose since Help to Buy with the other government
Yeah.
scheme has stopped, this now is the only really affordable way of doing it, isn't it?
It is, and the advantage of shared ownership is it does allow people to buy their first or buy part of their first property with a much smaller deposit than's required, even for the old Help to Buy product at a 75% share. So it really is it really is an exciting product to see young people getting onto the property ladder particularly.
Well, I said in the beginning that rents have gone, private renting has gone sky high. I had a conversation quite recently with a family who were renting, and out of the blue, the landlord decided to sell the house. So he gave them notice, and they hadn't really got very much savings. So shared ownership was the only option, and they'd never heard of it. So it opened up that
Yeah.
door, and they were absolutely over the moon because it meant that they weren't going to be homeless, and they probably could find a home to suit them. They had a little boy, but there were possibilities, which is amazing, really. Um, so, what do you think personally about the mortgage rates have risen, the rents, as we've just said, and the cost of living, the energy? I mean, a lot of people now are the new builds are very eco-friendly, so they're keeping energy bills down. Um, but what do you think people should do to get ready in this mortgage climate? Because that's the big stumbling block, isn't it?
It is, and I think, with all things, value, prices can go up and down. Every time you see, any sort of caveats on any financial product, it does say, prices can go up and down, and you're taking on a big commitment when you buy a home. You are. It is still a big decision to make, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, I don't think. So one of the things that we talk to our customers about quite clearly is about how much, are they planning for the future? So could they still pay the mortgage if the rates went up to 7 or 9 or even 12%, which over the last 40 years, mortgage rates have done that before. And we've had the last few years of incredibly low interest rates where I think in some ways people have been sort of lulled into a false sense of security that it will always be this way. But when you take the 40 years of interest rates, the average over those last 40 years has been around 7%. So actually, this is more, I feel it's more of a correction of where interest rates probably will sit in the longer term. When you think you're taking a mortgage for 40 years or 30 years, depending on your age. So I think going into it with your eyes very much wide open, doing a budget planner and being realistic in your budget planner to make sure that you've got money left at the end of the month, um, for things, and knowing where you can cut back when times aren't that easy. Have you got those? We all like a little luxury, don't we, in life? But have you got that amount in your budget that you can, not have those little luxuries if the market is difficult, if you suddenly have a bill or you need some form of backup plan, really. So I think that's really, really important. And also in terms of getting mortgage ready, we see a lot of people who think, in a year we'd like to buy our own property. um, don't
Mm,
make late payments on any of your credit cards. Don't miss any payments, because those things have a huge impact on how lenders see you as a viable um, person to lend to. It makes a massive difference. Another top tip would be to get onto the electoral register, because that really helps your credit score. It really moves it up. So small little things like that. Sometimes you just forget to pay your credit card bill on time or something, but it can have such a big effect. So just try to keep your eye on what's going on with your your bills
mm.
and your outgoings, really.
I think it's amazing that you are telling people this because so many people don't understand about the credit, and it's not really
Mm.
widely known amongst most first-time buyers, particularly that they have to have some form of credit to show that they can pay it off, that they are going to be good to their word, I suppose. Um, but they have to pay it off, as you say. They
Yes.
can't just leave it sitting there, and their credit rating will go dip right down. Um, but I mean, what do you think? I mean,
Yes.
everybody's sort of like gambling at the moment about the interest rates. I mean, we're not financial advisors, so we don't really know. But it doesn't seem too bleak, does it? I think a lot of lenders have come back into the market after the sort of mini budget that we had that sort of threw everything into disarray.
Yes, I mean we've seen a good level of lenders in the
Yeah.
marketplace and a good level of product offering, actually. And I think, as you say, we can't sit here and give financial advice, but talk to your talk to an independent financial advisor, get the options, and just understand, like we said earlier, understand just what would happen if interest rates do go up over time, and whether or not you can have options like fixing a rate for a certain amount of time or having a variable rate. And those are decisions that you can talk through with a financial advisor who can give you much better advice than I think I could. And a lot of help from family, and interestingly, L&G have done a piece of research recently saying it's not always just bank of mum and dad. Actually, now as people are coming into the market a little bit older, it can be siblings or aunts, uncles. It's not just traditionally it was mum and dad would help if they can. But this is actually quite an interesting concept, that it's also siblings and other
Yeah,
family members that are helping
absolutely.
as well, grandparents, that sort of thing. And I think, the beauty of the shared ownership product is, the deposit that you do
Oh,
need is so significantly less, than buying on the outright market, that it is achievable over a few months if you're disciplined with yourself and you have your budget. There's some great apps out there now for budget planning, which it tells you over the course of the month what you spent your money on, and that can be quite scary
yeah,
sometimes. You think,
yeah,
how much did I actually spend on things that I didn't need? And if you're working towards that goal of owning a property, then it's been dedicated, a bit like being on a diet, really. You've got to stay focused. So
yeah, exactly. You have to count the cost and not well, you have to count the calories, obviously. Um, so, can you just explain about the staircasing process, how that works? Because people can buy more, can't they?
they can, yes. So I always think staircasing is a really odd expression, because it sort of sounds like something nobody's going to know about, this sort of secret thing that happens over here. But once you've bought your home, you can buy more shares. Now, each lease is different slightly, so there will be differences, but generally you can buy a minimum share of 5. And you, at the time that you want to do that, you get a market value, so how much is the property worth at the time, and then you can add shares in 5% increments as you go up if you wish to. It's normally better to try and do a larger share, because you have costs associated with buying more shares. So there's solicitors' costs and mortgage arrangement fees and those sorts of things. So it's normally better.
Mm,
Your financial advisor normally would say it's better to buy more shares in one chunk, rather than small increments all the time.
yes.
But it's
Absolutely.
it's a great way. Obviously, when you
Mm,
buy more shares, then the proportion of rent you pay goes down, so it works in people's favour.
absolutely. And so eventually you could staircase to 100% and then it's all yours, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes,
And can you just explain very
absolutely.
briefly,
Yes, yeah.
if you wanted to sell your home, even if you only owned 50%, how does that work? Can people still move out? You know, if they have a
Yes.
family that it's too small for them.
Yeah. Now, I'm really passionate about this. You've sort of you've hit the hit my Achilles heel here now, Linda, because when people buy affordable homes and shared ownership properties, we really want them, that if they do decide to sell and do something else,
Mm,
we really want to give somebody else that opportunity to buy and experience that that sort of step up that they had. So we work very, very hard to try to make sure that people can sell their share easily. So they would get a valuation again to find out how much the property is currently worth, and the housing association responsible would then market the property. Normally, there's normally a sales period in there. It can be 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, like similar to an estate agency's contract, really, to sell that property. If after that time the customer can't find a buyer, then they can go on the open market and sell the property there. So there's always an option. But if somebody's looking to sell, I would, make sure they allow that time, for look at the lease, see what it says, and make sure you've allowed that sales period in there
mm,
as well.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a good process.
I'm, I'm sure that you must have lists of people, who want to buy what we call a resale, which is not brand new, but somebody's lived there before.
Yes.
So I think that most housing associations have these lists, so you don't have to struggle too much to sell it.
No, exactly. And all of those properties can be advertised on property portals such as sort of, Share to Buy or Rightmove, or other ones are available. But, the kind of major property
And
portals
the
that you would go
buyer,
looking
do
for a
they,
property
if
as
say
well.
somebody
So,
owned 50%, the buyer that's buying the home, do they have to buy 50%? Can they buy more or can they buy less?
It would depend on the housing association. Most of the time, they would buy the share that the customer is selling. That's the norm. Some housing associations will look at doing smaller shares. So, say somebody owns a 75% share of their home, it's quite difficult sometimes to then find a buyer that can go in straight away at that level. So sometimes they may do what's called downward staircasing to allow a smaller share, but the majority of the time, it would be the share that the person is selling, the new person would buy. So it would be a,
Great. Well, I think it's an amazing scheme, and I'm so happy that it's kind of come into its own in recent months. It's brilliant. Um, so just to sort of finish off, just your overview of, well, we're nearly in 2024. This year is just flown by. How do you see the market, say, in 6 months' time? Are you optimistic?
I, I am for the shared ownership product. There's always a good demand for this product because it, particularly as you said at the beginning, the way that the rental market is, the uncertainty of renting with some smaller landlords where there isn't that security of tenure, and not knowing if, as the time comes up to the end of your tenancy agreement, are they going to renew, do I have to move again? It's very disruptive for people. So I do feel quite confident. And also I think when you're buying a home, you're taking a mortgage for somewhere between 25 and 40 years. And if you constantly look at what the next 6 months are going to be doing, you wouldn't sleep. You need to look at that longer view of, if I was paying rent over those 6 months, and if I was paying my mortgage, all the time that you're in that shared ownership property, you're paying down that the value of that share. You're paying off some of you're paying off some of your mortgage, and you've got that security of tenure. So
Yeah.
I think it's trying to sometimes take that longer term view as well for customers. And
Absolutely. I do. I think you're quite right. You shouldn't be looking just, as you say, just down the road. You need to look, this is
yeah,
my home. This is what I'm going to live in and invest in. And things change, of course they do. But really, we've said there's nothing quite like owning your own home. Until you've done it, you don't know that feeling. And also, just one other very
no,
quick thing. Of
exactly.
course, with shared ownership homes that you've you've part bought some of it. You can put pictures on the wall. You can paint the walls a different colour. Which, if you're living in a private rented place, you can't do any
Yes,
of that because the landlord would go crazy. So it is your home, and I think we need to get that across. That
absolutely.
it says shared, but it's not really shared with anybody but the housing association, isn't it?
Absolutely. It should be. I think we should rename it, Linda. We should rename it Your Own Front Door, because it would be really nice, because you do have your own front door. And it's funny. I was visiting a friend who's renting a home last week, and I was with my partner. He doesn't work in property, and he said, "Why? Why are there no
Not
pictures on the
allowed.
walls?" And she said, "We're not allowed to put pictures on the walls." And he was like, "I can't believe that you can't put pictures on them." I was
Not
just like,
allowed.
no, no,
No.
this is how it is.
You can't actually do anything. And I suppose if you did, they'd say, well, you can, but you've got to put it all straight when you leave. So you're there filling holes and painting and goodness knows
Exactly.
what. Who wants
Yeah.
to do that? So, thank you so much, Denise. Is there a website or anything that, if people are really interested to look at what you're offering and your amazing developments, which are literally countrywide, can you just tell us where they should look?
Yeah, of course. We have an awful lot on Instagram
Right?
and Facebook and TikTok. There's lots of stuff on our social channels, which is like those informative, useful tips and things like that, which I would definitely say have a look at. And our website is also L&G, L&G-A-H.com. And again, that shows you what properties we've got available, but there's lots of video on there and information to help people about what the buying journey looks like, and a bit more information about shared ownership if people would like to have a look.
So, Denise, thank you so much. And, and yeah, I'm
Thank
sure that
you. It was
we'll
great
talk
talking to
again
you,
very
Linda.
soon. Thanks. Bye.